welcome to this new very special interview. Today's guest is one of the most iconic actresses, not only in the West End, but also on Broadway. With a career spanning for over 2 decades, Kerry Ellis is widely considered one of the biggest performing icons in musical theatre. Having played many well-known roles and even becoming a reference for some of them, she has also been prolific as a recording artist, since she was discovered by the lead guitarist of the rock band Queen, Brian May. All of these and much more is what we'll be discussing in today's interview. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. What a lovely intro. Thank you.
Well, you deserve it. We're just saying the truth. So, how are you now? You must be sort of very exhilarated now that the theatres are going back to normal after, it's been, 1.5 years with theatres closed. How has it been for you during all this time?
Yeah, I don't know. It's had its ups and its downs. I think, our community was hit really difficult, really hard, and it was very difficult for them, with not a great deal of support from our government here for the arts. It wasn't particularly ranked very highly in what was important. So we were kind of left, which was really sad because, the entertainment industry brings in such a huge amount of money and well-being and support and entertainment for people that I think it was a real shame. For me personally, yes, it was difficult. I had lots planned. I had released an album that I was about to tour with, and obviously that couldn't happen. So I ended up shipping out these albums from my home, which was kind of nice because I got to have that personal touch, which I wouldn't usually have. So that was nice. I set up my own podcast called Keep Calm and Carry On. So that was a nice focus, and also I got to spend a lot of time with my family. So it had its definite bonuses, but career and work-wise, it was really challenging.
Mm-hmm. It certainly has been for everyone, and as you said, and I don't think it's only happened in the UK. I think that all around the world, the governments have not been supportive at all regarding the arts. It's like they're always last place in the queue, and that's so saddening, especially for what you said. I mean, British theatre especially is worldwide recognized, and it's seen as the highest standard. And if you travel to London, one of the things that you have to do is go watch a play, watch a musical, and the government has not been supportive whatsoever. So it's really a shame, as you said.
Yeah, and we were the last, we were the first ones into lockdown, and we were the last ones out of it, and I think that's tricky. But I think the positive of now is that theatres are opening and they're doing really well. There's lots of people booking and going and supporting, which I think is amazing. So hopefully we're out of the woods, if you like.
Of course we will. Well, let's go now to the very inception of your career, or even a little bit earlier, because it seems that you were passionate about the performing arts since a very young age. I think that when you were 6, you already took dance classes, and when you were 9, you took part in a regional production of The Wizard of Oz, right?
I did. I mean, I was one of those kids, I guess like lots of young girls and boys go to dance class, and I loved it. I went from a really early age, maybe 3, 4, and I loved it. I mean, I don't remember as such those exact times of how I felt, but I remember going, and I must have enjoyed it because I kept going back. So it was very much a part of my life from an early age. I don't think I really realised that I was going to have a career in it until a bit later, but there was a definite spark and a definite passion from a young age, which I think is important, because a lot of young people find it hard to find their passion, find what makes them tick. So I think I felt quite grateful that I knew I was very clear about my path. I knew that I wanted to entertain. I knew I wanted to be a performer, and so for me, it wasn't a case of, what do I do? It was, how do I do? Mm-hmm. How do I get there? How do I do this? And I just loved every second of it, as I still do. You know, I still have that kind of drive and passion to find new projects, to you know, if an audition comes in, I'm always kind of keen to do it. And yeah, I guess The Wizard of Oz was quite a moment for me, because it was the first time I did a professional show. I was only young, but it was the first time I got paid to be in a show, and that was really important, because it showed me that I could make money out of something that I loved doing. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It was this is the way I'm going to go, because I love it, and I can hopefully support myself while doing it.
Mm-hmm. Although the turning point in your life when you do realize that musical theatre is, you know, your biggest passion, I think it was when you were, I think, around 13. You went to see Les Miserables, and you saw the character of Fantine, and you fell in love with it, and you said, well, this is what I want to do. Do you remember, you know, the exact feeling, how it hit you, and you realized, well, now it's clear to me. Now I know that I have to focus on musical theatre.
I very much remember the feeling when I heard the overture. I remember that kind of, it was almost like, you know, when you go on a roller coaster and that rush of adrenaline, it was that. And I got so, it was just like a flush. It was an excitement. And I thought, this is amazing. This is where I'm excited. I feel alive. I feel passionate. I feel inspired, and I remember that feeling. I don't really remember the show as such. I mean, obviously I know it very well now, but I just kind of remember it being quite dark and being moved, feeling emotional, and that's I think the memory I come away with, which is really important, you know, really important.
Totally, yeah. And that's what's so amazing, especially about the theatre, how it can move you in a way that I think that no other art form can do it. Maybe because it's live, and also in musical theatre because of the power of the music, that it's so remarkable, the power that it can have on us.
Yeah, I mean, I say it to young students and people all the time that, you know, it's musical theatre. You know, we're not going to see an opera, we're not going to see a rock band or a comedian. You're going to see music and theatre, and the whole point in that is that you come away and you feel something. The shows that have impacted me the most have been the ones that have really kind of hit my soul and grabbed my heart and made me come away questioning or emotional or happy or whatever it is. You know, those are the shows that affect me the most, and I think that's what musical theatre is all about. It's about transporting you for a few hours, making you think, making you feel, and yeah, that for me is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm, totally. Now that you mentioned, you know, what you usually tell students, I would like also to talk a little bit about your training, because when you were 16, you enrolled in an independent art school, and you've always said that it was one of the most unique experiences in your life. Why was that?
Well, I look back on it now, and I think it was a fully fledged, established drama school called Lane Theatre Arts that had been running for many years. There wasn't a great amount of colleges around when I was auditioning. When I went, there was, you know, maybe 5 or 6 big London colleges. Unlike now, you know, now there's tons of colleges and lots of different places to train, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. It was unique because suddenly I was doing what I love doing all day, every day. I wasn't having to go down to English and maths and science and sit at a desk and, you know, try to commit to these subjects. But I mean, academically, it just wasn't my passion. So I was committed, but it was just not where I wanted to be. So the minute I got to go to college, which was at 16, which was perhaps a little early, I loved it because I was just doing what I wanted to do every day and around like-minded people. So surrounded by some of my best friends now, you know, that we were all there together. We all had common interest, and we had a great 3 years training. I think it's quite young to be in full-time, in a full-time facility like that, only because I'm not sure if you're quite ready as a person, you know, you're not quite mature enough in a sense. However, I loved it. I'm glad I went at 16, because I think if I'd have done A levels or done a higher education first, I think it would have crumbled me. I would have found it really difficult. So yeah, a bit. But you know, my training is what got me going, is what kind of propelled me into the industry and got me ready for it. So I'm very grateful.
So do you think that there was sort of before and after Kerry regarding training, that you were sort of a different person when you left college? It helped evolve as a person too.
Absolutely. I think the essence of me, the you know, the passionate, excited, young, you know, performer was there, but I perhaps needed to be developed and brought out of myself a little bit. I think while I was at college, I was also able to go and work at a place called Potter's Leisure, which is like a hotel really, and I was performing and singing in the evenings. So I was able to kind of put into practice what I was practicing at college and learning at college, and I was able to kind of go out and use a microphone and stand on a stage and talk to people and sing, and that was really important. So I felt like when I did leave college, I'd had a little bit of experience of actually working as well. So there was a definite change in me in those 3 years, 100%.
Brilliant. And as you said, well, after graduating, you were in different sort of small productions. You also, I think that you were on a cruise performing as a soloist artist. But, you know, a little time later, there comes your first big opportunity, which would be in the revival of My Fair Lady. So as a performer, as a young performer by that time, which challenges did you find, you know, to suddenly land on a Western production of such an iconic musical, a musical that many people already know because it's not the first production? How do you face that, and which challenges, particularly in your case, did you find?
Yeah, I mean, there's always an expectation when you go from everybody, from the people that you're being employed by, and also the people, and on yourself. You know, you want to do a good job. It's the first time you've done a West End show. You don't really know what's going to happen. I was working with some amazing co-stars and director, Trevor Nunn, who was unbelievable. And it was a big company. It was a really big production. So there was a lot of people around. The challenge, I guess, was being the understudy, having to learn that role, and then also having to step up to deliver this role that people are coming along to see a superstar play this role, which Martine McCutcheon, who is a really famous, or at the time was a very well-known actress. She'd just come off the telly, she'd just done an album, she was hugely successful. So when she wasn't there to come on and play this role and make and give people the experience of a show where they feel something and get that experience and they come away and they love it, was a bit of pressure. However, I think I was still young enough and I don't know, fearless, I guess, when you're young, to just jump in and just get on with it and do it. And I loved it. And I look back on it now and I realized what a huge deal it was, but at the time I don't think I did. I think I just went along with it. I think I just took it all a bit in my stride and didn't quite take on the gravity of it, you know, how huge it was, and also how influential it was going to be for me moving forward.
Is there you know, sort of a big lesson that you learned by, you know, from having that experience?
Oh, huge. I mean, being thrown in like that and on very little rehearsal, because it was quite quick that I went on, to perform opposite somebody like Jonathan Pryce, who's huge, he's the real deal. He's done so many films and shows and plays and you name it, he's done it. To be suddenly stood on a stage opposite somebody like that was incredibly daunting. However, he was so brilliant and warm and helpful and encouraging and decent that it made the job really exciting and a joy to do. I just felt a real privilege and honor every time I got to play that role opposite him. So yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a blur, if I'm honest, because every time I went on, it was such a big deal. That it was almost like a memory. I would go on and perform the show, and I'd get to the end of the show and kind of not even realize what had happened. It's so bizarre, such a bizarre thing that we do.
Fantastic. So one of your, next great roles was Fantine in Les Miserables, and it had to be something really remarkable, because all of a sudden you have the opportunity to play the role that made you know that you wanted to dedicate your life to musical theatre. So it has to be remarkable, all of a sudden, first of all, when they tell you, well, you've got the part, you're going to be Fantine on the same stage or in the same production. I don't know, I think that it was still at the Palace Theatre when you did it.
I did it at the Queen's. I was the first year at the Queen's.
Okay, so it had transferred. So it was not the first stage, the same stage, but it was the same production that that made you know that you wanted to dedicate your life to musical theatre. So the feeling had to be overwhelming.
It was, because like you say, it was the first musical I went to see. It was the first musical that really had an impact on me. So to play that role several years later was a dream. It was when you sit as a young girl or a young person and you go, I want to do that. I want to be part of that. And then years later, you actually are there doing that specific role. It was magical. It really was. I also got to be a very small part in the movie, which again was another. It kind of tied up my Les Mis journey quite nicely. Again, just to be part of something so huge and so iconic was a dream, really was.
However, one of the roles that you are, best known for is Elphaba in Wicked.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about this thing is that I think that you started as the understudy for Idina Menzel, but you already had some fans by that moment. I think that some people already wanted to go see you when you were the understudy, right?
Well, I think I was starting to make my mark as such as a performer. I'd done things like My Fair Lady and Miss Saigon, Les Mis, and We Will Rock You was a big deal, because We Will Rock You was an original role, like to create a role. So there was a lot of press, there was a lot of interest and excitement around the show. So I think by the time I got to do Elphaba, when I took the job, I didn't realize I was going to understudy for a little while. I took the job thinking I'm going to open the show. So that for me, it was almost just like a little stopgap while I had to wait for Idina to play the role for 3 months. And I think because she was the original from America, for me, it was like, well, okay, I get it. If I was asked to go to Broadway to open a show that I'd created, absolutely, I totally understood. So yeah, I did have a bit of a support network by then, which was great. But that's sometimes just how it goes, how theatre goes, and you just have to wait your time. And I'm kind of glad I did, because I then got my own opening night, and I got a lot of excitement and interest and press around the show. So I then also got to go to America, because Idina came here. I got to go to America. So again, some things happen for a reason, and if she hadn't have come here, maybe I wouldn't have gone there. So I'm grateful for the whole experience.
That would be my next question, now that you mentioned that you are the first person to play the role both in the West End and on Broadway. How did the opportunity come to you? How was it, and why did they decide to take you to Broadway too? How was the process?
I think it was just Joe Mantello, who's the original director. was over and watched me do the role one night, and he basically just asked me. I think they had an opening coming up in New York, and he just asked me basically, and I was like, well, of course I want to. I mean, what an experience. It was all quite quick. It all turned around very quick, and that was it. It kind of felt like it opened the door a little bit, because since then, Rachel Tucker went to do it, and I know that they've had lots of Americans perhaps come here. Mm-hmm. Jennifer Denoa came over, and so I think it was a good pathway as such, and it was fun. I mean, my time on Broadway was a lot of fun. It was really interesting. It was something I'd again wanted to do from childhood, so to tick that box was huge.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Do you find, as a performer, any differences between the West End and on Broadway, both maybe in the way that they work and also regarding the audiences? Because sometimes, depending on the city, the audience's response is quite different.
As it is here, if you do a tour around the UK, mm-hmm. the audience vary depending on where you are, what city you're in. Some places are more reserved, some places are more raucous, some places, very interactive, some aren't. And yes, I think that varies all over the world. When I've toured all around Europe, audiences react completely differently, and I think it's something to get used to, because we're all neurotic as performers, and we're all a bit insecure and a bit obsessive. So if an audience doesn't react in a certain way, we instantly go, oh, what's wrong? They're not enjoying themselves. What did I do? Oh no, they hate it. They hate me. Mm-hmm. And I think the more you do it and the more you get those experiences, you kind of go, actually, people are just different, and that's okay. People enjoy things differently. Some people like to sit and listen, and some people like to really get involved, and other people like to sit and be moved, and that's okay. And I think once you realize that, it becomes a lot better ride and a lot nicer experience.
Mm-hmm. However, I think that maybe it's more helpful for a performer if you have a very involved audience, because you sort of feed from their involvement and the way that they respond. Do you think so?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it does depend on the show. If you're doing if you're doing an intense play or doing a very dramatic scene, you want the quiet, you want people listening, you want people engaged. But when it's a moment to applaud or to react, absolutely, it does help the performers hugely, because we're only human, and to hear that response that people are enjoying themselves or they're having a response. Mm-hmm. is massive, and it does make you raise your game. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So before we move to another part of your career, since Wicked is a very technical show, we would like to know, have you had any funny bloopers during your journey in Wicked?
Oh, so many. I mean, there were times when I didn't come up through the trap. There were times when bits of costume went wrong, or the broom broke. We forgot lines. We sang different lyrics. I mean, I think because I was part of the show for such a long time. I mean, I was in it, I think it was about 2.5 years in total, on and off. You've got a long time for things to happen. And like I said, we're only human, and things do go wrong and things do happen, and that's the beauty of theatre. That I think that's why I love theatre, because it's right there in front of you. It's something that's happening in real life there in front of you, and I love that. I love that it's spontaneous. Sometimes it's always different depending on who's on the stage, who's in the audience, and I think that's one of the exciting things about theatre. You're not sitting on a screen. You can't sit there with your popcorn and and turn it off or pause it and go to the toilet. You can't do that. You have to be there. We're all in that experience for that one moment, and that's the brilliance of it.
Fantastic. So now we are going to move to your the recording part, that part of your career as a recording artist. When did you decide, and how do you decide that you want to also explore that part and you would like to release some albums?
Yeah, I mean, hang on, let me shut this door a second. Yeah. My kids are getting a little bit vocal. I think it was always in me. I think when I was younger, it wasn't just theatrical performance that I was interested in. It was all sorts of performance, and I knew that I loved doing it. I didn't know how it would turn out. I always, I dreamt of being on a musical stage, but I also dreamt of being a pop star and being on the radio and doing voiceovers and doing telly and doing, all sorts. So I think the music was always there. I think because I sang, the music was always there. I think I found theatre first, basically through the college journey that I went to. I think it felt like a natural progression. But music was always there, and I was always dabbling. I dabbled a little bit through college. I would do I did a couple of recordings. And when I left college again, I did a couple of cast albums and dabbled a little bit. But the main change was obviously when I met Brian, when I did We Will Rock You, and met Brian, and he, to cut a long story short, basically invited me to his studio to see what we could come up with. And it was a life changer, because suddenly I had an outlet, I had an avenue to explore and to learn. And of course, I was learning from one of the best. He educated me of how to work my way around a studio, how to mix an album, how to find songs that worked for me. And that was a real game changer. And we've gone on to then obviously work together for nearly 20 years. But it gave me also the confidence to go it alone and to find other avenues with my music. So I've done albums by myself and with other people, and toured as myself and toured with other people, done lots of concerts, which is kind of what I do more of now. So yes, it's a lot to do with him, really.
Now that you mentioned that you've done several concerts, in comparison to musical theatre, do you find, as a concert singer, any particular challenge in comparison to musical theatre? Maybe that it's not that challenging when you're in a musical, but when you have to perform as a singer in a concert, it makes it, there is something that is more difficult than when you're singing in a play or in a musical.
Yeah, I mean, they both have their challenges. There's a lot more freedom in singing in concerts, because in a musical the parameters are quite tight, because you're delivering a show that's written by someone else, that's written a specific way, so they want it generally performed in a certain way, so you're more restricted. Whereas when you do a concert, you can kind of interpret in your own way, and you can bring more of yourself to a song. So say when I sing something like Defying Gravity now in a concert, it's completely different to how I used to sing it in the show, because I'm allowed that freedom. I can phrase the way I want to. I can riff the way I want to. I can breathe when I want to. You don't have those parameters. I guess the difficulty with a concert version is that you have to hit the people, really fast, hard and fast, because you only get that one opportunity with that one song. You haven't got the whole show to give them that experience. And I guess sometimes if I'm doing, say, a night at the musicals or something like that, you might do 10, 12, 15, 20 songs. And usually they're all the big songs from the show. In a show, you might have one or two big songs, but in a concert, you might have 10, because you do all of the big favorites. That's just how it works. So that can be challenging. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy both. I enjoy the discipline of both. I also like that in a concert, you might sing lots of different styles in one night, which is quite interesting to me. I could sing a rock song, and then I could sing something a bit more classic, and then a very traditional song, which I find really interesting. But yeah, they have their different challenges.
Brilliant. And by the way, yesterday I read that you just signed with a new recording company, and that you will be releasing an album next year. So what can you tell us about it?
It will. So it's called Westway. They're a new label. I've worked with two of the founders before. Lovely Neil O'Brien and Rydian Roberts, who I've worked with them before, so I knew them well. And when I continue to work with Brian as well. We've got music on the way, but that is always a as and when, because we both work a lot, so that's always bubbling along in the background, and we come to that when we can. And so this is exciting for me to have a new label, and I'm good. And I think the album is going to be completely new material, new originals, because it's something I haven't really done before. I've done cover albums, I've done rock albums, classical albums, musical albums, but I've not done a whole album of new material just on my own, which I think it would be interesting. That's where that's at. And next year, it will come out next year. I think we're going into the studio in January, so that is exciting. And I can't wait to see what happens with it.
Fantastic. Moving back to your career in musical theatre, as I said in the introduction, one of your most recent roles was Grisabella in Cats, in the revival of Andrew Lloyd Webber's massive hits, whom I think he happens to be one of your favorite composers too, I think.
I love it. Cats was something that I saw really early on. I went up, I think, with the school to see it. Probably not that long after Les Mis. So Cats was a very interesting show for me, because again, it was something I grew up listening to. I grew up listening to the Cast album and singing along to Elaine Page, and it was quite important, the show. And again, I loved how unusual it was, and how the Cats would come out and be in the audience and be in your face, and they were so lifelike. It was like, how can a real person make you buy into that they're cats, and not question that it's, hang on a minute, there's cats dancing around the stage singing and dancing, this is weird, this is odd, and nobody really knows what's going on. But it was brilliant, and I didn't think I was going to get the opportunity to do the role. I'd sung the song in concert many times and loved it. I think it's a phenomenal song, and the fact that it's known worldwide, it's appreciated still all over the world, has a real testament to the song. I just didn't think I was going to get to play the role, because it had come out of the West End, and prior to that I just wasn't right. I wasn't old enough to play the role. And when I was, then I wasn't available. So when it came back to the Palladium, I was like, wow, well, this is my time. This is my time to play this role. And it was honestly one of my favorite jobs. I loved being part of the company. I loved the music. I loved dancing again, because I hadn't danced for a long, long time. So to be physical in a show was really kind of set something alight for me. And those iconic costumes, they did actually redesign the Grisabella costume for Nicole and myself. So that was exciting to have a slightly new look for Grisabella. And I loved it. I really loved it. It was only for a short period. I was possibly going to play the role again out in Taiwan last January, but obviously COVID shut that down. So I was really gutted, because I'd have loved another little opportunity to play that role.
Well, maybe, in some time we will see you again playing that role, hopefully.
Maybe.
So just, going through all these roles I've asked you about, I realized that you have played some of the most iconic roles in musical theatre. And many times when you've played them, as I said in one of my previous questions, they were already quite well-known shows. So do you, every time that you land on these new huge roles, you have to play Grisabella, you have to play Elphaba, you have to play Fantine, do you feel some kind of, maybe not pressure, but a huge responsibility to do justice to a character that so many people have already grown fond of?
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, with when you're given that opportunity, there's an expectation, and you have this role in your hands. You have to kind of care and protect and deliver something unique and something special. Yeah, there is a lot of pressure, and it comes in different ways. You know, like for things like Grisabella in Cats, you know, everybody's waiting for you to go, touch me. They're just waiting for that moment. Same with Wicked, you know, everyone's waiting for you to go, ah. Those moments are really nerve-wracking. And I remember in Cats, because the memory doesn't come until like the end of Act 2. You've got to wait around the whole show to then come on and sing this number. So the anxiety of waiting every night, you know, they wait, and you know the audience are waiting for that song, you know it. So you can like feel this atmosphere, you can feel this sense of, come on, give it to us, what's coming. So that is quite high pressured. Mm-hmm. But you know what, I've been doing it so long that I think I thrive on the pressure. I quite like being under pressure. I think I deliver some of my best work when I'm stressed and when I'm under pressure. I don't know what it is about that. I don't know if I don't know why, but if I have a long time to sit and learn something, I generally don't until the very last minute, because it just doesn't go in. I think until I stress myself out, then it starts to go in. I don't know why, but yeah.
Brilliant. So to end this interview, there are two more questions that I would like to ask you. First of all, I would like to ask you about, apart from the album that we just discussed that is going to be released next year, do you have any upcoming projects? I think that you're going to be playing at the Hyperdrome in November, is it right? And I don't know if, apart from telling us about that concert, if there are any other projects that you would like to tell us about.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm so grateful that things have started to pick up. Christmas is incredibly busy for me this year, I hope, if COVID behaves itself. Christmas is usually quite busy for me. So to have a really nice December is going to be wonderful. And I do lots of big orchestral concerts with Christmas songs. So it's really festive at lovely venues like the Barbican, we do the Bridgewater Hall, we do the Birmingham Symphony. So that's really exciting for me. I love those shows. I've also got a lot of intimate, kind of just me and a piano. I'm going to do the Pheasantry in London for 3 days on the 1st and 3rd of December. They always sell out really quickly, which is, I think there's a couple of tickets left, but they're going really fast, which is lovely. I love playing that kind of small, packed environment. Mm-hmm. It's really simple. So I'll be doing that. I'm going to Belfast for a couple of days to do a couple of Christmas shows. So yeah, lots of Christmas. And then next year, I'm doing like a musical tour with Louise Dearman. Mm-hmm. Again, just around the country. We've got about how many dates? 10, 12 dates, something like that, around the UK. Again, that's more musical based. So all the biggest hits from all the shows, again, with an orchestra. So that will keep me busy for a little while. And yeah, more music, more podcasting. I think more of my podcast. We're on season 5. I've got my book coming out at the end of the year called Bump Into Broadway. So yeah, it's busy times. It's nice though. I'm glad to be back being busy because I've missed it. It's very much a part of who I am. So when I'm not working, yes, I'm a mum and I'm a wife and I love to exercise and run my home and I love all of that. But it's my performance and what I do is such a huge part of me. So to be back doing that now is joyous.
Brilliant. And to end this interview, since we also, have discussed all your journey from a very young age to, until you become a professional performer and you train and all of that, which would be, after all these years playing, working in musical theatre with all this broad experience, which piece of advice would you like to give to any aspiring performer, any young performer?
I think I would say you have to be passionate, you have to love it, because it can be really difficult, it can be really challenging, really tough and quite demanding. So you have to love it, because those dark times are when you need that passion to drive yourself through. I would also say, you know, be okay with who you are, because I think we all look back at our younger selves now and think, wow, you know, I look great and I was doing amazing things. And at the time, I remember being quite, not insecure, but I remember being worried about myself, going, I'm not as tall as her and I'm not as thin as her and I don't look like her and I have, you know, my nose is like that and my stupid things. You know, you don't realize what you have when you're younger. And I think I would just say, enjoy who you are, be who you are, and don't give yourself a hard time. And I think especially now with things like social media, it's so easy to go on a screen and compare yourself to other people. And I think just be kind to yourself, and enjoy what you do. And if you love it, it can be the best job in the world and one of the best paths to take. So find your passion and follow your dream.
That's a fantastic piece of advice. So thank you very much, Kerry, for this lovely interview. And we're very excited to see you, you know, in all your projects, which, you know, they look so fantastic. And yeah, well, thank you again for such a lovely time.
Thank you so much. And it's been lovely to chat to you, and all the best, all the best.